Today, Buncombe County's mask order went into effect, requiring people to wear masks in any business, including restaurants. But as News 13's Kimberly King reports, many tourists and locals aren't following the rules.
It's a mixed bag. Some people are wearing masks, and here in West Asheville, some people aren't. In fact, the cashier inside the Shell station says he's not seeing as many masks as he'd like.
A lot of opinions about it right now.
We went all over town, near the Grove Arcade, walking with their masks. Sam Hager in West Asheville also wearing his.
There's a lot of people out without masks.
People at a West Asheville pub eating without, along with a woman waiting in a downtown restaurant.
How do you eat with a mask?
Neil and Debbie Rudnick are visiting from Tennessee. The protocol is diners can remove them to eat.
I think it's kind of foolish.
I think it's unrealistic for people to stay at home forever.
Dr. Vina Somani, who works at a West Asheville urgent care, feels the ordinance is still smart, letting businesses control their space.
It's really to protect others. It's not to protect ourselves.
Wearing a mask, she says, can prevent bacteria from spreading, particularly from someone who's asymptomatic.
At least the people that might have been on the fence, or at least being offered masks when they're entering commercial spaces.
We have a table up and an umbrella.
Jenna and Rich Fox of Mars Hill came up with their own idea to social distance.
We've been coming to Blue Mountain Pizza for 12 and a half years. We kind of miss going in.
So they dined in their truck bed.
When we went in to order the pizzas, we did wear masks.
But they say they do wear masks in businesses. It will be up to merchants if they ask all those coming in to follow the rules.
The Macon County Health Department reports 7 members of the Evangelical Ebenezer Church congregation tested positive for COVID-19 last week.
We're not 100% confident of where all the infections took place, but we do know that there is commonality between that they all go to this church.
This past weekend, North Carolina's Phase 2, allowing church services with social distancing and safety protocols.
They've reported to us that, yes, they've been gathering prior to this weekend.
Health officials don't know where the first case came from.
Did the individuals become contagious to each other through church meetings or in their home situation? That does not mean that they've necessarily done things inappropriate, since they are more of a Hispanic culture. We've had a little bit of difficulty just getting in communication with them, but they've been otherwise pretty cooperative.
Health leaders are conducting contact tracing and have a drive-through testing site behind the health department. Overall, the county says they've done fairly well, with a number of cases bumping up in the last week and a half, taking into account the increase in testing.
We have had 17 positive tests done on folks in Macon County, 13 active cases, 2 that have resolved, and there was 1 death early on.
Dr. Dewhurst says the positive cases are not terribly ill. He does worry about North Carolina reopening slowly, surrounded by Tennessee, South Carolina, and Georgia opening more quickly.
Southwestern North Carolina is kind of like a finger out in the midst of all that.
Health officials advise 3 W's. Wear a mask, wait 6 feet apart, and wash hands often.
Each one of those cases, those folks have been told to quarantine until they receive a negative test result. For those testing positive, they will have to self-isolate for 2 weeks.
They find other ways to stop impaired drivers.
Whether you're in your car or out on the water, if you're driving drunk, MAD Director Ellen Pitt says law enforcement will find you.
They do what's called saturation patrols, and for areas that have already been identified as high risk, like a lot of wrecks or a lot of DWI risk.
Pitt says this year, like in years past, Mothers Against Drunk Driving has partnered with the North Carolina Highway Patrol and the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission for their On the Road, on the Water campaign. She says it's been a successful weekend, but different when it comes to who they've been pulling over.
They are arresting local people driving short distances, which is different from having the tourists that are all over the place.
Pitt says COVID-19 has also caused some delays in processing offenders.
I think there's been some backlog, like at the magistrate's office or the intoxilizer and those kind of things, where They may have to wait in line with their suspect because only a limited number of people can be in.
Pitts says this year, 4 law enforcement officers from our area have been recognized statewide for their efforts in arresting DWI offenders. Buncombe County Sheriff Deputies Ronnie Davis and Jeff Gilstrap, the number 1 and number 3 top DWI arresting officers in the state. From Macon County, North Carolina State Trooper Charlie Cheeks, MAD's State Trooper of the Year, and Black Mountain Police Officer Joseph Moore, the 2019 Heart of MAD Award winner, which Pitt says is all the more reason to drive safe.
Now that we're limiting trips to the grocery store and food deliveries can be few and far between, managing the food that we already have in our homes is more important than ever. News 13's Jennifer Emmert has some recommendations from Consumer Reports on how to cut back on the waste by keeping food fresher longer.
If you want to waste less food, Consumer Reports says to maximize the way you store it. Starting with the refrigerator. Make space for new food before heading to the store or accepting a delivery. Cold air that can circulate throughout the space will keep your food best. For optimum freshness, your refrigerator should be set at 37 degrees and your freezer at 0. Go through your cupboards and check out the best buy dates and move the oldest foods to the front. And you don't need to take those dates as throw-out dates.
Best buy dates may mean the food will taste best before this date, but it doesn't mean it's unsafe to eat. Examine foods past their best buy date. If you see signs of spoilage, when in doubt, throw it out.
The dry goods in your pantry will last longer if you store them in airtight packaging. This will help keep bacteria and moisture out. And when you freeze or refrigerate foods, wrap them tightly. Then mark them with a date so you're more likely to use them first. And Consumer Reports food experts say to keep staples like bread longer, keep it out of the refrigerator.
Bread can go stale much faster in the refrigerator than if you store it in a cool, dry place, but you can freeze it. Just wrap it tightly and put it in an airtight container or a resealable bag.
If you don't think you'll use milk before it expires, pour a little out of the carton and freeze it. It will keep for up to 3 months. Strawberries will keep for about a week in the refrigerator if you remove the stems and lay them separately in a covered container. Finally, you can freeze eggs. To keep the yolks from hardening and becoming unusable, whisk them a little, then pour them into an airtight container. They will keep well for about a year in your freezer. Jennifer Emmert, News 13.